Franklin Eaton, billionaire, stands frozen, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Across from him, Hillary Lewis, the night cleaner he's barely noticed for months, holds a stack of letters. "Thank you," she whispers, tears streaming down her face, "for seeing me as an equal." And in that moment, everything he thought he knew about love shatters into 1,000 pieces. Because these letters, these beautiful anonymous love poems that have been his lifeline through the darkest period of his life, came from her, the woman he walked past every night without a second glance. If you're watching this from your home in California, Texas, New York, or anywhere else in the world, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling us where you're tuning in from. Because this story, this impossible, beautiful love story, will remind you that magic exists in the most unexpected places. Franklin Eaton's world was made of glass and steel. 42 stories above Manhattan, his office overlooked an empire he'd built with his own hands. Tech genius, visionary, billionaire. The headlines loved those words. But at 3 a.m, when the city slept and his office remained lit like a beacon, those words felt hollow, empty. He'd been sleeping at the office for weeks now. His penthouse apartment felt too big, too quiet, too full of ghosts from a marriage that had ended in spectacular flames. Caroline had taken everything in the divorce. Not his money, she had plenty of her own. She'd taken something far more valuable, his ability to trust, to feel, to believe that anyone could see past the bank account to the man underneath. So he worked. 18-hour days that bled into 20, coffee growing cold on his desk. Meals forgotten. The cleaning crew came at midnight. Quiet shadows that moved through his world without disturbing it. He never looked up, never acknowledged them. They were invisible, part of the machinery that kept his empire running. Just like everyone else who served the great Franklin Eaton. Hillary Lewis pushed her cart through the marble lobby, her reflection ghosting across polished floors. Her uniform hung loose on her frame, navy blue and anonymous. She was 31 years old and invisible. That's what 6 years of night shift cleaning taught you. How to move through spaces without being seen. How to exist in the margins of other people's lives. She cleaned the offices of people who made more in an hour than she made in a year. Lawyers, executives, tech billionaires who changed the world while she emptied their trash cans. Her degree in English literature gathered dust in a drawer back in her studio apartment in Queens. Turns out poetry didn't pay the bills. Dreams didn't cover her mother's medical expenses. So she cleaned, and she wrote. Late at night after her shift, words spilling onto pages that no one would ever read. She'd first noticed him 3 months ago. The man on the 42nd floor who never went home. Franklin Eaton. She knew his name from the placard on his desk. She'd seen his face in magazines, Forbes covers, and business profiles. But in person, alone in his office at midnight, he looked different. Tired, sad, human. She'd watch him sometimes, just for a moment, as she emptied his trash. The way he'd rub his eyes. The way he'd stare out at the city like he was searching for something he'd lost. And she recognized that look, that loneliness. She knew it intimately. The first letter was an accident. A moment of impulse she couldn't explain. She'd found a quote in her notebook, something she'd written weeks ago during a particularly difficult shift. In the quiet hours when the world sleeps, some souls burn brighter, not with ambition, but with the ache of being unseen. She'd left it on his desk, unsigned, folded carefully beside his cold coffee cup. She told herself it was nothing, a random act of kindness. She'd never do it again, but the next night, she'd found a note in reply, written on expensive letterhead in strong, decisive handwriting. "Thank you. I needed to read that. Someone sees me after all." Her heart had stuttered in her chest. He'd responded. This billionaire, this untouchable man, had responded to her words. And suddenly she couldn't stop. Every night she left him something new. Poetry about loneliness, about finding light in darkness, about the courage it takes to keep going when everything feels impossible. She never signed them, never gave any indication who she was. She was just a voice in the darkness reaching out to another lonely soul. Franklin began living for those letters. He'd arrive at his office each morning and there it would be. Folded paper on his desk, words that seemed to reach directly into his chest and touch something he thought had died. Whoever was writing them understood him, saw him, not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the man underneath who was barely holding it together. He tried to figure out who it was. asked his assistant. Checked security footage. But the cameras on his floor had a blind spot right by his door, and whoever delivered these letters knew exactly where it was. It became a mystery that consumed him. A puzzle more engaging than any business deal. He started writing back. Long responses that he'd leave on his desk before he finally went home to shower and change. He wrote about his divorce, about feeling like a fraud, about building an empire but losing himself in the process. He wrote things he'd never told anyone. Secrets and fears and dreams he thought he'd buried forever. And every night there was a response, understanding, compassion, poetry that made his chest ache with longing for connection. 3 months passed like a dream. 3 months of words exchanged in the darkness. Franklin found himself smiling again. Working reasonable hours because he wanted to leave notes and return to find responses. He started noticing things. The way his office always smelled faintly of lavender after the cleaning crew passed through. The way his desk was arranged just slightly differently each morning, pens aligned, papers straightened with care. Someone was taking care of his space, taking care of him in small, invisible ways. Hillary was falling in love. She knew it was crazy, knew it was impossible. But with every letter, every response, every word they exchanged, she felt herself tumbling into something beautiful and terrifying. He didn't know who she was. Didn't know she was the woman who cleaned his office, who watched him through windows when she thought he wouldn't notice. And she couldn't tell him. Because the moment he knew, everything would change. She'd stop being an equal. Stop being a mysterious correspondent who understood his soul. She'd just be the cleaning lady. Invisible again. But love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't care about logic or class or the impossible distance between a billionaire and the woman who empties his trash. Love just grows, wild and untamed, in the space between words on a page. Franklin's best friend Marcus arrived unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon, barging past the assistant with the confidence of someone who'd known Franklin since college. "You look different," Marcus said, dropping into the leather chair across from Franklin's desk. Almost human. "What happened? Did you finally remember how to smile?" Franklin tried to play it off, shrugged, made excuses about a new project. But Marcus knew him too well. "It's someone, isn't it? You met someone." And Franklin, who never talked about his personal life, who kept everything locked tight behind walls of professionalism, found himself confessing about the letters, the anonymous correspondence, the connection that felt more real than anything he'd experienced in years. Marcus listened, his expression shifting from amusement to concern. "Frank, you don't even know who this person is." "Could be anyone. Could be messing with you." But Franklin shook his head. "You don't understand. These letters, they're real. This person sees me, actually sees me." Marcus leaned forward. "Then find out who it is." "What are you so afraid of?" That question haunted Franklin for days. What was he afraid of? That the reality wouldn't match the fantasy? That knowing would ruin the magic? Or was it something deeper? Fear that whoever this was would disappoint him. Or worse, that he'd disappoint them. Because on paper, in letters, he could be vulnerable, honest, real. But in person, he was Franklin Eaton, cold, controlled, the man who'd built walls so high that even his ex-wife couldn't climb them. What if meeting his mysterious correspondent meant losing the only real connection he'd had in years? But curiosity won. It always does. He left a letter asking to meet. "I need to know you," he wrote. "These words between us, they've saved me. But I want more. I want to see your face. Hear your voice, please. Let me take you to dinner. Let me thank you properly for giving me back something I thought I'd lost." He left the note on his desk with his private number written at the bottom. Then he waited. Hillary found the letter at 11:45 that night. Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped her cleaning supplies. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. He wanted to meet, wanted to know her, and she wanted that too, desperately. But fear crashed over her like a wave. What would he say when he discovered the truth? When he realized his mysterious correspondent was the woman who cleaned his office? Would he feel deceived? Embarrassed? Would that beautiful connection shatter the moment reality intruded? She ran, left his office without leaving a response, went home and cried until dawn broke over Queens. She couldn't do it. Couldn't risk losing the one beautiful thing in her life. So she made a decision that broke her heart. She stopped writing. No more letters. No more poetry. Just silence. Franklin checked his desk every morning. Nothing. Days turned into a week. Then two. The silence was deafening. Had he scared them away? Pushed too hard? He left more notes, apologies, promises that they could stay anonymous if that's what they wanted. He just needed to know they were okay. But nothing came back. The mysterious correspondent had vanished like smoke. And Franklin, who'd finally let himself feel something again, felt the walls slamming back into place around his heart. He became obsessed. Started really looking at people for the first time in months. His assistant, his lawyer, someone in another office. He analyzed handwriting, reviewed security footage for hours, drove himself half crazy trying to solve a mystery that seemed determined to remain unsolved. His work suffered. Deals fell through. Meetings were missed. Marcus staged an intervention, physically dragging Franklin out of his office for drinks. "You're spiraling," Marcus said. "Over someone you've never even met. This isn't healthy." But Franklin couldn't explain it. Couldn't make Marcus understand that those letters had been more than words. They'd been a lifeline, a connection, and now they were gone. Hillary watched him deteriorate from the shadows. She saw the new letters he left, read his desperate pleas, and every night her heart broke a little more. She wanted to respond, wanted to tell him she was still here. But fear held her paralyzed, so she did the only thing she could think of. She took extra care of his space, made sure his coffee mug was washed and waiting, left the lavender scent he seemed to find calming, small, invisible acts of love from someone who couldn't reveal herself. It was Marcus who accidentally solved the mystery. He'd come by late one night, worried about Franklin who wasn't answering his phone. Found him passed out at his desk, exhausted from another 18-hour day. Marcus was trying to wake him when the cleaning crew arrived. He barely glanced at them, too focused on his friend. But then he saw her, the woman pushing the cart. The way she froze in the doorway when she saw Franklin slumped over his desk. The pure anguish on her face. The way her hand moved instinctively toward him before she caught herself. And Marcus, who'd built his own fortune reading people, saw something. Recognition, love, grief. He approached her slowly. "You're the one writing the letters, aren't you?" Hillary's face went pale, shook her head, tried to back away, but Marcus was gentle, kind. "It's okay. I'm his friend, and he's been destroying himself trying to find you. Why did you stop writing?" The words tumbled out of her then. The whole story. How it started. How it grew. How she fell in love with a man who'd never really see her because of who she was. What she did. "Look at me," she whispered. "I clean offices. I'm nobody. And he's Franklin Eaton. The moment he knows the truth, I stop being his equal. I just become the help. Another invisible person in his world." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "You're wrong about him. And you're wrong about yourself. Those letters, that connection, that was real. Both of you, seeing each other truly for the first time. Don't let fear steal that." He wrote down his number, pressed it into her hand. "Think about it, but don't wait too long." He's barely holding on. For 3 days, Hillary carried that piece of paper, pulled it out a dozen times, almost called. Almost didn't. She was terrified. But she was also tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of hiding. Tired of loving someone from the shadows. So she made a choice. A terrifying, brave, impossible choice. She wrote one more letter. "I'm ready to meet. But first you need to know something. I'm not who you think I am. I'm not an executive or a lawyer or someone from your world. I'm the woman who cleans your office. The one you walk past every night without seeing. And I understand if that changes everything. But I needed you to know the truth before we meet. Because I won't hide anymore. Not from you." She left it on his desk. Then she went home and waited for her world to end. Franklin found the letter at 6 in the morning. Read it once, twice, 3 times. The cleaning woman. His mysterious correspondent was the cleaning woman. He tried to picture her. Couldn't. Realized with a stab of shame that he'd never really looked. Never really seen any of the people who kept his world running. They were background noise, invisible, just like she'd said. His first instinct was shock, confusion. This wasn't what he'd expected. But then he read the letter again. Read all the letters, every single one she'd ever written. And he realized something that made his chest tighten. She'd seen him. Really seen him. Not the money. Not the power. Not the carefully constructed image. Just him, raw and broken and real. And she'd reached out anyway. Offered comfort, understanding, love. Who she was, what she did, it didn't change the words. Didn't change the connection. It just made her braver than he'd ever been. He called Marcus. "I need your help." I need to find her, her name, her number, anything. Marcus laughed. Already done. Her name is Hillary Lewis. And Franklin, don't screw this up. Franklin sat in his office that night waiting. He'd sent a message through Marcus, asked Hillary to come see him after her shift started. 11 o'clock. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He'd faced down hostile boardrooms, negotiated billion-dollar deals, built an empire from nothing. But this terrified him, because this mattered. She mattered. More than anything had mattered in years. At 11:15, there was a soft knock on his door. He stood, smoothed his tie, realized his hands were shaking. Come in. The door opened slowly. And there she was, Hillary Lewis, dark skin glowing under the office lights, natural hair pulled back from a face that was beautiful and terrified in equal measure. She wore her cleaning uniform, navy blue and simple, but she stood in his doorway like a queen. Chin up, eyes meeting his, refusing to be invisible anymore, and Franklin felt something in his chest crack wide open. Hi, she said softly. Just one word, but her voice, God, her voice was like music, like poetry, like every beautiful thing she'd ever written to him. Hi, he managed back. They stared at each other. The distance between them felt like miles, like inches, like everything. I'm sorry, they said simultaneously, then laughed, nervous, awkward, human. Franklin moved first, crossed the space between them, stopped just close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Don't apologize, he said, please. You gave me something I'd forgotten existed. Hope. Connection. You saw me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. Hillary's eyes filled with tears, but I lied. By omission. I let you think I was someone else. Someone more. He shook his head. You let me think you were my equal. And you were right, you are. Because none of this, he gestured at the office, the view, the empire, none of it matters. What matters is this. Us. What we built with words in the darkness. She wanted to believe him, desperately, but fear still gripped her throat. Franklin, I clean your office. I empty your trash. How can you look at me and see an equal? And that's when something shifted in his expression. Pain, shame, understanding. Because I haven't been looking at all. And that's on me. My failure, not yours. I walked through this world blind, thinking people's worth was measured by their job title or their bank account. But you taught me different. Every letter, every word. You showed me that the most valuable things are invisible. Kindness, understanding, the courage to be vulnerable, to reach out, to love. The word hung between them. Love. Neither had said it before, not in all their letters, but it was there. Had been there for months, growing in the darkness like a secret garden. I fell in love with your words, Franklin whispered. But standing here now, seeing you, knowing you, I'm falling in love with all of you. The woman who saw a lonely man and chose compassion, who writes poetry while the world sleeps, who's brave enough to love someone impossible. Hillary felt her walls crumbling. All the fear, all the doubt, all the years of being invisible. This is crazy, she breathed. We're from different worlds. Your friends, your family, they'll never accept this. Accept me. Franklin stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his warmth, see the vulnerability in his eyes that she'd only glimpsed in letters. Then we build a new world, one where we make the rules, where love matters more than appearances, where two people who found each other in the darkness get to walk in the light. But reality crashed back in. Hillary stepped away, put distance between them because proximity made it too hard to think. You say that now. But what about tomorrow, next week, when you're at some gala with people who matter and I'm cleaning offices? When your ex-wife finds out? When the media gets hold of this story? Billionaire and the cleaning lady. They'll tear us apart, tear me apart. And she was right. Franklin knew she was right. The world they lived in was cruel, judgmental, built on hierarchies and appearances. Dating Hillary would invite scrutiny, criticism. His board would have concerns. His investors would question his judgment. It would be complicated, difficult, maybe impossible, unless he changed the game entirely. Marry me, he said. Just like that. No preamble, no romance. Just two words that stopped time. Hillary's eyes went wide. What? Have you lost your mind? Franklin laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in months, he felt light, free, certain. Probably. But marry me anyway. Not someday. Not after we date and work through all the complications. Now, this week, before either of us can talk ourselves out of it, before the world can tell us all the reasons why it won't work. Hillary shook her head, back toward the door. Franklin, this is insane. We barely know each other. Not really. Letters aren't real life. Romance isn't enough. You can't just marry someone because you're afraid of losing them. He moved toward her, gentle, persistent. You're right. Letters aren't real life. They're better. They're truth without filters, without pretense. We know each other, Hillary. We know each other's souls. And yes, I'm afraid, terrified, because you're the first real thing I've felt in years. But I'm not asking because I'm afraid. I'm asking because I'm certain. Certain that whatever complications come, we'll face them together. Certain that what we have is worth fighting for. Tears streamed down Hillary's face. Your life will implode. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. Franklin caught her hand, laced their fingers together. I built an empire and felt empty. You wrote me letters and I felt alive. That's the only equation that matters. She looked at their joined hands, dark skin against light, calloused from cleaning supplies against smooth from expensive moisturizer. The physical manifestation of all their differences. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. But she didn't pull away. The best ones usually are, Franklin said. And then he kissed her, soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. And Hillary, who'd been invisible for so long, who'd loved this man from the shadows, kissed him back. Let herself fall into the impossibility of it all. When they broke apart, she was trembling. I need time. We need time to do this right, to figure out if this is real or just beautiful fiction. Franklin nodded. Okay, time. But Hillary, I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever. So take your time. Figure out what you need. But know that I'll be here, waiting, certain. The next weeks were strange, dreamlike. Franklin reduced his hours, started leaving the office at reasonable times. And Hillary? She stopped cleaning his floor. Transferred to a different shift, different building, because they both needed space to figure out if what they felt was real or just the romance of anonymous letters. They met for coffee, awkward first dates where they had to learn each other's faces, the sound of each other's laugh, all the small details that letters couldn't convey. And slowly, carefully, they built something real, but the world was watching. Rumors started, whispers in boardrooms, questions from investors. Someone had seen them together, photographed them, and the media, always hungry for scandal, latched on. Tech billionaires, cleaning lady romance. The headlines were cruel, mocking. They called Hillary a gold digger, Franklin a fool. The board called an emergency meeting, demanded he end the relationship, said it was affecting the company's image. His ex-wife gave interviews, suggesting he was having a breakdown, that Hillary was taking advantage. Franklin sat in that boardroom and listened to men in expensive suits tell him how to live his life, tell him that his feelings were inconvenient. That love was less important than stock prices. And something inside him snapped. You're all fired, he said calmly. Every single one of you. Chaos erupted. Threats of lawsuits, warnings about consequences. But Franklin just stood, walked out, because he'd finally learned what mattered. And it wasn't this. Wasn't money or power or the approval of men who'd never risked anything real. He found Hillary in her apartment in Queens. She'd been crying. He could see it in her red eyes, in the way she held herself. I can't do this to you, she said before he could speak. Your life is falling apart because of me. Your company, everything. I won't be the reason you lose what you've built. Franklin pulled her close, held her like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. You're not taking anything from me. You're giving me everything. A reason to wake up, to feel, to be more than just a bank account and a business card. They can have the company, the board seat, all of it. Because without you, it's meaningless anyway. Hillary pulled back, looked at him like he was crazy. Franklin, you're not thinking clearly. You're throwing away your life's work. He smiled, cupped her face in his hands. No, I'm finally seeing clearly. I spent years building an empire but forgetting to build a life. You reminded me what matters. Connection, love, being seen, really seen. So yes, I'm throwing away everything that doesn't matter. And I'm keeping the only thing that does. You. If you'll have me. The proposal was simpler this time, more real. Just two people in a tiny apartment in Queens. No grand gestures, no billion-dollar backdrop, just love. Raw and complicated and absolutely certain. Marry me, Franklin said again. For real this time. Not because I'm afraid, Not because I'm rushing, but because when I imagine my future, every single version has you in it. Because you make me better, braver, more human. Marry me, Hillary Lewis. Let's write the rest of our story together. And Hillary, who'd spent her whole life being invisible, who'd loved this man enough to stay in the shadows, finally stepped into the light. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll write our story with you. Whatever comes. They married 2 weeks later. Small ceremony. Just Marcus and Hillary's mother and a handful of real friends. No media, no spectacle. Just 2 people making promises in a world that said they didn't fit. Franklin wore jeans. Hillary wore a simple white dress. And when the judge pronounced them married, Franklin kissed his wife and felt complete for the first time in his life. The aftermath was messy. Franklin walked away from his company, sold his shares, started smaller, built something new with Hillary by his side, a nonprofit focused on adult education, helping people like Hillary who had degrees but couldn't use them, creating opportunities for those the world overlooked. It wasn't billions, but it was meaningful, real. And Hillary? She finally pursued her real passion, published her first collection of poetry, dedicated it to the man who taught her she deserved to be seen. Years later, Franklin would sit in their brownstone in Brooklyn, watching Hillary work on her 3rd book and marvel at the journey. How anonymous letters had led to the greatest love of his life. How being broken had opened him to being whole. How the woman everyone said he shouldn't love became the only woman he could imagine loving. "What are you thinking about?" Hillary asked, catching his gaze. Franklin smiled, crossed to her, kissed her temple. "Just that I'm grateful. For that first letter, for your courage, for you." Hillary leaned into him, safe, loved, seen. "Thank you," she whispered, the same words she'd said that first night. But now they meant something different. "For what?" Franklin asked, and Hillary smiled. "For seeing me as an equal. For never stopping. For loving me enough to lose everything." Franklin held her tighter. "I didn't lose anything. I found everything. You taught me that worth isn't measured in dollars or status. It's measured in courage, in kindness, in the willingness to reach out in the darkness and offer light. You did that for me. Let me spend the rest of my life doing it for you." And in that moment, in their home filled with books and love and second chances, they knew they'd found what everyone searches for. Connection, partnership, a love that saw past surfaces to souls. A love built on words and darkness that flourished in the light. A love that proved the world wrong. That said, 2 people from different worlds could build a new one together. One where being seen, really seen, was the greatest gift of all. Their story became legend. The billionaire and the cleaning lady who fell in love through letters. But for Franklin and Hillary, it was never a fairy tale. It was real, messy, complicated, beautiful. It was 2 broken people finding wholeness in each other. 2 invisible souls finally being seen. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the money, not the status, not what the world thought, just love. Simple, profound, transformative love. And they lived. Not happily ever after, because life isn't a fairy tale, but purposefully, joyfully, together, writing their story one day at a time. One letter, one word, one moment of choosing each other over and over again. That was their elixir, their treasure. The knowledge that being seen, being loved, being brave enough to reach for something impossible was worth everything. Worth the risk, worth the loss, worth the fight, because in the end, love isn't about perfection. It's about presence, about showing up, about seeing and being seen. And Franklin and Hillary, they saw each other, really saw each other, and that made all the difference.